Brother and sister veterans, it's my honor and pleasure to be able to address you and your fellow citizens in this film about veterans and their commitment to America. I'm retired Navy Rear Admiral Chuck Kubic. I served for over 30 years as a U.S. Navy Seabee and basically operated overseas from Saigon to Fallujah in my career. I also spent some time working in the Reagan White House as a White House Fellow, and in early 2016 I was asked by then candidate Donald Trump to become one of his national security policy advisors. And it was at that time that I was also introduced to a grassroots organization called Veterans for Trump.
Donald Trump is running for president.
And Kubic also says, the only way to make America first is allowing someone like Trump to shake up the foreign policy establishment, and he's sure doing that without a doubt.
Then there's ISIS. I have a simple message for them. Their days are numbered. I won't tell them where, and I won't tell them how.
It's really an interesting start to this organization because it started clearly as grassroots, almost an ad hoc organization where some veterans noticed that when Trump was starting to hold his rallies, the crowds were so overwhelming that the local event planners and the police had a hard time just parking people and getting them organized and ushering them into the arenas. And so they volunteered to assist Trump's security. At that time, he didn't have any Secret Service protection or any of that type of security, so they volunteered to help. And they were basically just working the crowds, and that then started to gather other volunteers, and volunteers who basically looked at the message that President-to-be Trump was talking about, and they became very strong supporters. And so this group grew until such time as they spread across the United States and ultimately had a very significant impact on voter turnout for the 2016 election.
That momentum, Veterans for Trump in 2016, has only grown.
And I saw the country was being taken over by people who really are communists, people who don't like America. They were desecrating our flag. Back in the day when USA athletes went over to and play in the Olympics, they were proud of the flag. They were proud of America. And I started to see black athletes and white athletes hating on America, and especially when President Donald Trump was coming up in 2016, and I saw them really, really hating, and I decided to stand up and to open my voice. Although I'm a pastor, I use my pulpit to preach some politics with faith, because I believe both of them are intertwined. So yeah, that brought me to it when they started going after President Donald Trump, and I saw that even the media was against President Donald Trump, and politicians and even many Republicans. I decided that I would put my hat in and fight for America.
I got involved, I met with him, and I liked Donald Trump because I got tired of Republicans and Democrats giving us the bull, okay, and saying how they're supporting veterans and nothing being done. So I went with a businessman who had a history of helping veterans.
First of all, for the record, I'm a state representative from New Hampshire, 10 years on the Veterans Affairs Committee, 22 years in the Marine Corps, retired First Sergeant. What I want to clarify here, first of all, I would never, ever in a million years put my name on a candidate that did not, from his heart, look me in the eye and tell me he's concerned about veterans. That's Donald Trump. I met him over a year ago. I've been involved with many fundraisers. There are many scam artists out there. He did the right thing by betting these groups there. If you look at some of the groups that are giving 20 cents, 40 cents on the dollar, and they're spending the rest for, their, nice lavish trips. He gave 100%. The liberal media is the only ones that have been calling me on the foundation. All right, I'm the former chairman. I've been dealing with this stuff for years as a veterans activist. Stop using veterans as political pawns. You got a guy outside McCoy. Go do a Google search on his Facebook. He's out there, his pictures with Clinton. They are using veterans as political pawns. It must stop. Donald Trump is doing this for the heart. You're all focused on the way he's raising money, and you're not looking at the 22 veterans that are killing each other every day. You're not concerned about the thousands of veterans that are on wait lists. Look at his plan on his Trump's website. He talks about medical cards. He talks about fixing the VA. He talks about competition. I think the liberal media, and I've been dealing with you a long time, need to get your head out of your butt, focus on the real issues. Thank you.
Military veterans are lining up behind Donald Trump. Many admire his blunt talk about jumping into wars without a real plan and remain among his most loyal supporters.
We're joined by a number of those admirals and generals and 7 Medal of Honor recipients right behind me.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Donald Trump wins the presidency.
Iraqi television has just confirmed that Qasem Soleimani, former general in Iran's Revolutionary Guard and a commander of the Quds Force, has been killed in a rocket attack apparently initiated by the United States near the Baghdad airport.
The Trump administration is expanding its Remain in Mexico policy.
The next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Judge Neil Gorsuch.
The right to try legislation has passed the House. This bill allows terminally ill patients to try experimental drugs and treatments.
President Trump praising the news that ISIS has lost 98% of the territory it once held.
Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed as the 114th Justice of the Supreme Court.
He has directed the Pentagon to establish a new branch of the military, a Space Force.
President Trump has announced Federal Appeals Court Judge Amy Coney Barrett as his nominee to fill the Supreme Court seat left vacant.
President Trump signs a bill expanding private care for veterans.
President Trump's announcement that the U.S. government will now recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital.
President Trump officially launches his 2020 re-election campaign tonight.
Biden has picked California Senator Kamala Harris to be his running mate.
The largest county in Georgia saying they are suspending the vote count at this hour in Fulton County.
Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States.
The 2020 election was stolen, and we all know it.
America is failing under the Biden regime. We have fallen from our once prominent position on the world stage.
I believe that we are on the brink of this nation falling apart. I think that Joe Biden's administration and the deep state have pulled our country so far away from the intended country our founders created. And if we don't pull back now and revisit what our country is supposed to be and organize the way that our Constitution demands, we might not have a constitutional republic worth saving any longer.
Violent crimes such as rape, abduction, and murder is out of control. Illegals have overrun our border.
A lot of the policies that come from the left just lead into lawlessness.
New York City police say the illegal immigrant accused of raping a 13-year-old girl last week in a park crossed the border illegally at Eagle Pass, Texas in 2021.
A U.S. Secret Service agent was robbed at gunpoint over the weekend as President Joe Biden was visiting Los Angeles for a fundraising event.
Kenner police have arrested a man accused of violently raping a 14-year-old girl, then stabbing and robbing a man a few days later.
So the Council on Criminal Justice documented a 30% increase in murders nationwide in 2020 during the height of the coronavirus pandemic. Those numbers, though, have only increased.
Crime continues to surge in big cities across the country.
All right, another brazen theft at a San Francisco drugstore caught on video. It comes after the governor and local officials pledged to crack down on crime that has forced so many stores to close down.
An illegal immigrant charged with the murder of a 22-year-old Georgia nursing student, Laken Riley.
He was an illegal migrant, and he shouldn't have been in our country, and he never would have been under the Trump policy.
Stocks around the world taking a major hit.
The Dow dropping more than 600 points on Friday, its worst day since May. The S&P had its worst week since April.
We saw around $1 trillion worth of wealth wiped off.
With the Nikkei down 12% last night, 12% in one night, a horrendous decline. That's the worst since the crash of '87.
You know, so most people don't remember what they had for breakfast yesterday, but most people remember their wallet on how it was under Donald Trump because you had more spending money. Your dollar was worth more.
We hear our children talking about how they make so much money and they still can't make ends meet. They feel like they've never made more money in their life, but they still can't pay their bills. And I can go down the line and tell you exactly who. I'm listening to all of this from my family, my children, my sister, and her children. And all of them are telling me I'm $2,000 behind here. I'm $1,000 behind here. And all of them are working. All of them are working not just one job, but sometimes two jobs. And then I have one niece that's working 3 jobs and still trying to make ends meet. And why is she working 3 jobs? It's because she's trying to help her family, not just her immediate family, but also her mother. She's trying to help, her in-laws. She's trying to help them, in any way possible. It's like the community, it seems to be tightening up, and trying to rally around each other. And people are not even trying to have their own home. They're like, hey, can I stay here a little bit longer? I mean, I know I'm 30 years old, but, I'm having a hard time finding a place because I can't afford to live on my own.
Woke stuff is like a religion.
Biden outrage as Biden proclaims Easter Sunday as Trans Day of Visibility.
The White House also banned religious-themed designs from the White House Easter egg art contest.
The leftists have nearly completely captured our classrooms, all of them.
I do believe that we are in a spiritual war, the battle that began in heaven with Lucifer and his fallen angels. They have filled the hearts of political people today, world leaders and people like Biden. I believe that these people are antichrist and they hate God and they hate humanity.
We are frustrated as parents to have to come down here to Richmond because we feel our public schools can't be trusted anymore to teach and educate.
The careless and dangerous political agendas that aim to target and influence our kids needs to end. Parents in America feel betrayed and disrespected. I'm a 20-year retired War College military veteran, college instructor for the state of New York, and a father of 3 young boys. Millions of parents who have also served this great nation have had enough. Our values are God, family, country, and freedom, not pronouns, gender confusion, and socialism. We need to get education excellence back in our public schools that promote the foundational principles of math, reading, and science, to name a few. These indoctrinating ideas backed by radical education union activists include the removal of America's founding father, President George Washington, from our history books. The idea that more than 2 genders, male or female, exist. I even hear talk of fur babies in our schools or kids identifying as animals. We have groups out there like the Trevor Project that identify over 50 genders. There is a reason we need more focus on mental health awareness and programs in this country.
You guys are just weird. That's where they are.
Just plain weird.
Has done something more extreme, more weird.
As weird and creepy as J.D. Vance.
I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk about some things that are weird. We think it's weird that Democrats want to put sexually explicit books in toddlers' libraries.
When I was in the military, we used to look at things like increased lethality, readiness, and being properly equipped. But now, this woke military is focused on things like gender inclusion, equity, and CRT critical race theory, as well as for what pronouns we use.
But the woke military, where they're intentionally focusing, I believe, on these Marxist issues, it's essentially Marxism, and I've accused the superintendent of the Air Force Academy of essentially supporting this ideology, and it's wrong, and it's meant to destroy our military. It's meant to divide. It's not a, when I was in the force, we didn't care what color your skin was. All we cared was, do you got my back? Can you do your job? And the best man was promoted. No matter, skin color was irrelevant.
Why should an LGBT plus community be recognized for 1 month and our veterans for really only 2 days? Veterans and Memorial Day. Think about that and know that these progressive leaders using communist tactics are a direct threat to our great republic. This indoctrination has real impacts like loss and recruitment of new military personnel who want to proudly serve and protect the United States of America. Another example, the decision for the West Point Academy to remove duty, honor, country from its motto. Prioritization of programs like DEI pose a threat to our country's national security. During a recent breakfast, I proposed to a senior-ranking House Armed Services Committee member the need to file a GAO study that lashes up defense, education, and homeland committees to assess certain Department of Education programs as a threat to national security.
Sadness of the readiness of the military is probably the worst I've witnessed. Look at the recruiting situation, even getting people to join the military. And you look at the readiness of the equipment, I look at the budgets, I look at everything that's going on.
and everything is on a negative downhill slide.
Twitter has announced it is cutting off President Trump's ability to post on the social media site permanently.
Interactions between the Biden campaign and top executives at Twitter.
Core problem here, right? The core problem isn't the decisions that these private companies make about what they want to show and what they're concerned about. The problem is when the government gets involved in pressuring them to make those decisions when it's not politically advantageous to that administration or that member or that unelected bureaucrat in some cases.
We need freedom of speech on these platforms because I do believe that was one of the ways that they stole and shook the election, the 2020 election, away from us on the social media platforms. Where you had the Hunter Biden laptop information that was suppressed and hidden from the American people. And they also used that platform to go after a sitting president and to kick him off of these platforms.
But your folks were there too, all 80 of them, 80 agents.
Well, but
combing social media every day, calling Twitter, calling Facebook, take that down. Get rid of that account. And it wasn't just on election interference. It was on COVID vaccines. It was on lockdowns.
Trump is literally being persecuted for expressing his own political opinion with regard to the 2020 election cycle. And whether you agree with him or not, the plain fact of the matter is that if he doesn't have the ability to express his opinion, then none of us do.
The fight for freedom of speech isn't just a conservative issue. This should be important to everybody. We're seeing it on a more grandiose scale, being conservatives. We're being silenced, we're being deplatformed, we're being censored. The moment that you go up against this administration about whatever the case may be that doesn't fall in line with what you're supposed to say and think, you too will be affected by it. You will be shut down. And that is our First Amendment right in the Constitution, is the right to free speech. That has to be safeguarded, because when that's gone, everything else will fall by the wayside right behind it.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
The FBI spied on Catholic churches around the Richmond area.
The FBI uses all tools available at its disposal to combat domestic terrorism, which now apparently includes the crime of being Catholic.
We're fighting pure evil. The deep state is very real and refers to a hidden group of government officials and intelligence agents who often try to influence policymaking behind the scenes without accountability to elected leaders.
I write about January 6th because that was my third day on the job. Third day on the job. First time being elected, brand new member of Congress. January 6th happened, and I had worked so hard. Brian can tell you, he was probably on a lot of the phone calls. We had worked very hard organizing to object to Joe Biden's electoral college votes because we truly believed then, and I believe now, they were fraudulent. And we were doing our constitutional duty. We weren't doing anything wrong, but we were going to object. And we had worked very hard and organized everything. And then all of a sudden we were doing the state of Arizona because it's the first state. And they let us know, the Sergeant at Arms lets us know that the Capitol has been breached. So I started saying, well, it's Antifa. It's Antifa. And, you know, it's rioters. We've watched this for the past year. I said, our people do not do this. I've been to 1 million Trump rallies. We don't hold riots. We're like the happiest people on earth. We always have a good time. And they were saying, no, they have on MAGA hats and they're in the Capitol and all these things. And I was like, what are you talking about? There's no way this is possible. So fast forward, some time goes by and the Department of Justice starts prosecuting these people, right? There's something you might hear and see on social media, and people point fingers at Trump and say, President Trump should have pardoned them all. He had the opportunity before he left office. Well, that is an absurd thing to say, and I'll tell you why. None of them had been arrested or charged with anything yet. A president can't pardon people that haven't been charged. So that wouldn't have even worked. And President Trump had no way of knowing that Joe Biden's Department of Justice was going to be the campaign arm for the Democrat Party and prosecute all of their political enemies, President Trump himself, right? There was no way to know that was going to happen. I mean, we didn't really know how far the Democrats would go with this, but now we do.
Did the FBI ask financial institutions to turn over their customers' debit and credit card purchase history in the Washington, D.C. area for January 5th and 6th, 2021?
I don't know the answer to that as I sit here right now.
Well, we do, because Bank of America gave us this email from the FBI to Bank of America.
Well,
so as time went on, one of the saddest things is I kept hearing about these January 6th defendants that were in jail in the D.C. jail, which is only a few miles from the Capitol. Literally, it's a 10-minute drive. And we started going over, just a handful of members of Congress, myself, Congressman Gates, Congressman Biggs, Congressman Gosar. We would go over to the jail and ask for a tour. Well, we have the right to do that. And here's what's interesting. Congress has jurisdiction over the District of Columbia because it's not a state. The District of Columbia is controlled by Congress. Well, when we would show up there, they would tell us, no, you can't come in. Every time we went, they would say, no, you can't come in. No, you can't come in. And we would remind them, you know, we do fund your paychecks in this facility. We make the budget, we fund it. No, you can't come in. They were unapologetic about it. And as members of Congress, we tour jails and prisons and all kinds of government facilities in our districts, or maybe on trips we take for our committees. We're used to doing this kind of thing, but they kept telling us, no, you can't come in. So it was clear they had something to hide. So we kept pushing and we kept pushing, and it was November. By November of 2021, they finally called my office, and they had the Washington, D.C. City Council was actually coming in for a tour of the jail. And they called my office and they said, if Congresswoman Green wants a tour, she's going to have to get here in 15 minutes and she'll be allowed to go on the tour. I was sitting on the House floor when that happened and we were voting. So luckily I was able to finish the last vote, hurry as fast as I could. I got Congressman Gomer, former congressman from Texas, to come with me. And we hurried over and we went to the jail. And I talk about this in my book. And we toured the entire jail except the January 6th wing.
There's no better contrast between what happened in the summer of 2020 and what happened January 6th than the issue of bail. We hear for many people that participated in destroying federal buildings, police buildings, looting, then that they had no bail, so they were immediately allowed to be released. And yet we got people in the D.C. jail who had no bail, meaning they can't get out. Now, on the state side, having been a felony judge, you had to have done something incredibly extreme to have bail so high that you could not make it, especially a no bail situation. It's just so extremely rare.
I said, I'm going to leave here right now, and I'm going to the media and tell everyone you refuse to let us see this part of the prison, but you let us see everywhere else. And so they made a smart decision and let us go in. Well, when we walked into that wing, it was in a completely separate part of the jail, totally separate part of the jail. There, is that better? Okay. And we went in there and walked in the room, and it was a big open room, and there were different hallways that go to where all the cells are. So this was kind of like a lobby. It was 2 stories. And we walked in, and these men came flooding out from all the different cells, and they came down the stairs and they walked out to the area. I have never seen more broken spirits in my life, completely broken. These people, they weren't like the other men in the jail, the rest that we had seen. These were broken spirits and they looked horrible. They weren't allowed to have haircuts. They had to use Nair if they wanted to cut their hair. They were not allowed to, they weren't allowed to have nail trimmers because they were considered, they're considered the most dangerous people in the country. They couldn't shave. They had to use Nair if they wanted to shave. And they were being held at that time 22 to 23 hours a day in solitary confinement. And it depended on when the guards wanted to let them out. That's why I said 22 to 23 hours. And when they were let out of jail, they told us that they were given a choice, that they could either go outside, or they could call their family, or they could call their attorney, or they could take a shower, or they could have recreation time. It was not any of those together. It was always one or the other, or the other, or the other. And that is how these people were treated for months and months and months and a year and so forth. Unbelievable. And that happened after what they call, worse than 9/11, says Kamala Harris. Worst day in history.
Dates that occupy not only a place on our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December 7th, 1941, September 11th, 2001, and January 6th.
As we know, the media lies, and they have changed the historical account of what happened on January 6th. And why have they done it? The same reason they did that with Russian collusion and all the other stories that they have attacked President Trump about. And now, since the time has gone by and we've seen the videotapes, and we have talked to so many witnesses, and we've seen body cam videos, and we have talked to so many people, we know on January 6th, this wasn't Trump supporters pulling some sort of so-called insurrection. That none of that happened. This was a Fedsurrection, or this was entrapment, complete entrapment. And it's one of the worst things that has ever happened, in my opinion, in our modern day American history, because it's been the government turning on the will of the people. And that is what concerns me greatly.
Former President Donald Trump could be facing a fourth indictment as early as this week. Georgia prosecutors are expected to appear before a grand jury to share their findings in their investigation into alleged election interference.
Earlier this afternoon, Donald Trump was arraigned on a New York Supreme Court indictment returned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in the first degree.
Federal prosecutors have filed additional charges against Donald Trump in the classified documents case.
They tried to impeach him in D.C. They tried to impeach him a second time. They went after his Supreme Court justices. They turned the DOJ, they turned the FBI against him. They couldn't stop him. When that didn't work, guess what they did? They went after his family. They went after me. 110 subpoenas later that I've received. I've never gotten so much as a parking ticket.
The media and big government is going after Donald J. Trump with the judicial system in an absurd way, with absurd charges, just to keep him from winning in this election in 2024.
We all know the media is attacking the freedom of speech of many Republicans across the country, specifically those that are veterans, that are conservative, and we all know that they have attacked President Trump's freedom of speech day after day. So much so that he went on to create a platform of freedom of speech for every American when he developed and formed Truth Social. It's a platform where many Americans have engaged over the past few years and discussed so many trivial topics that have come out of this Biden administration. You know, when the media went after me, Veterans for Trump stood by me because they knew my military history. They saw the documents that I was able to provide. They knew that this was a smear piece, and so did the president. And both of them made sure that they shared my story, the truth about my story, to counter the voracious attacks that I was inundated with by the mainstream media. And they are champions of integrity, champions of truth, and they've been leading the way for quite some time. Anytime I have a story that I have to counter the media, specifically with respect to the story that I talked about with my military service, the Veterans for Trump group has made sure they've assisted me. They've got it onto the wire.
We know at Veterans for America First that the media and social media are both biased, and we're not willing to concede to that bias. We maintain a press room, and the press room gives us, in a traditional way, to reach out to up to 80 million people to spread the word of the America First agenda.
President Biden will step aside as the presumptive Democratic nominee. We are moving forward.
Our primary mission at Veterans for America First, our grassroots mission, is to get President Trump reelected for the third time.
As the whole Veterans for Trump movement grew, it actually became a force that turned out votes for Trump, much to the surprise of the opposition, and in many cases helped swing the election to President Trump. So once he was elected, the question was, where do we go next, as Veterans for Trump? And that's when we realized that it was time to transition, that we had to be a little broader organization and become Veterans for America First, and to advocate the America First agenda, not just at the presidential level, but up and down the ticket, as well. And also we realized that there was a need that wasn't necessarily being filled to assist veterans. We knew that there was groups out there that helped disabled veterans. We knew there were groups that supported Gold Star families, but we began to realize that there were still veteran suicides that were way too high. And we began to look at what really is necessary, and we came to the realization that every veteran that transitions from military life into civilian life needs some help. Whether that veteran is a second-class petty officer or an admiral or a general or a sergeant, they need some help to be able to get on with a civilian life after living military life for anywhere from 4 to 30 years. And so we looked at, there was 4 areas that veterans needed to be helped, and they became pillars of the organization of Veterans for America First. And that is when people leave the service, they all need a job to continue. They also then need a home, and that new home may be somewhere distance from where they leave the military. And they also need to reconnect with their health care. They can no longer just go down to the clinic, to the dispensary. They have to reconnect with that. And then we realized that there was a difficulty among many veterans reconnecting with their community, particularly if they're in a new community. And we began to realize that what was missing is they weren't necessarily reconnecting with their faith. And so if they had family issues and they didn't have the church to go to, they didn't have the community. And so we began to look at that component as well.
Hey, brother and sister veterans, we're here today with Eric Trump, and it's a great day. It's a day that the Veterans for America First are looking at our 4th pillar, which is helping veterans connect with their faith. And we're finding that is a key factor in their transition, in their becoming a part of America. It's also key that veterans' voice is heard throughout America. They can't just stand alone in their communities. We need their service, we need their voice, and particularly their voice through their churches to the American people about how we need to save and fix this country.
Veterans are the greatest people in this country. On behalf of myself, my family, my father, we love you guys to death. You are the toughest men and women in the world by far. What my father did to rebuild all of our armed forces, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, everything, create Space Force, was incredible. And we love you guys. We appreciate you. Thank you for the sacrifice you make. But beyond that, vote American first. It's everything, and let's go get these guys again.
We began to help veterans in transition at all levels, and to be able to talk, to provide advice, to provide guidance, as well as to continue to advocate for America First candidates in other elections, particularly at the local level. And so the organization kind of grew and matured, and at this point, realizing where the threat is to our country and the need for veterans, we are once again focused on, Veterans for Trump.
The mission of Veterans for Trump, as I understand it, is to coalesce all of the veteran leaders across this great country who support one of the best presidents this country has ever had and return the support he's given for veterans back to him.
Getting out the vote is not going to be enough this time. What we need is for veterans to not only stand up in their community to talk about the choice that needs to be made between a repressive, centralized government that will continue to try to rule our lives versus a return to peace and prosperity under a rejuvenated Trump America. We need to have veterans volunteer to work at the polls. We need to have people who are trained and become poll volunteers, poll workers, and also poll watchers. And so as you look at your community, particularly if you are in a major city in a swing state, we need your help and we need it right now. So if you're in Philadelphia, if you're in Charlotte, if you're in Detroit, if you're in Milwaukee, if you're in Atlanta, if you're in Phoenix or Las Vegas, we need you to rally. We need you to come to us. We will come to you and say, what can you do to help? And what we need is we need a legion of veterans across this country, particularly in key cities and swing states, that will make sure that not only do we turn out the vote, but we turn out a vote that is fair, a vote that is properly cast, a vote that is properly counted, and that we can basically guarantee to America, regardless of how the election goes this time, that it was done fair, that there was no stuffing of ballot boxes, and that the American people had spoken and they had used their time to choose the kind of life they wanted for their children and their grandchildren, rather than to just default to more of what we've experienced the last 3 to 4 years, which we know is leading to a collapse of what we call America.
We are known at Veterans for America First for our powerful and influential endorsement. It's so influential that President Trump shared it on his Truth Social platform.
They are focused on getting the leaders in this country that have served under the oath of office to the Constitution to step forward and lead this country to a victory.
Well, after my viral video went out last year as I was running, Democrats like to say that no one needs an AR-15 for self-defense, that no one could possibly need all 30 rounds. But when this rifle is the only thing standing between your family and a dozen angry Democrats in Klan hoods, you just might need that semi-automatic and all 30 rounds. I ran into a couple of guys, they emailed me, we talked, and I met them in Virginia Beach. We had a blast, we hung out in the RV, and they offered me an endorsement, and I gladly took it.
In this last primary cycle, our endorsement helped Representatives Mace and Bobart win very tight races in their districts.
I'm Jason Hallett, veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom and AAA amputee. Joe Biden has taken VA resources away from our veterans and is now using them for illegal aliens. I can't begin to tell you how hurtful and offensive that is. In this year's congressional election, I will be voting for Lauren Boebert because she supports veterans like me. That's one of the many reasons she's endorsed by Veterans for America First. Please join me and vote for Lauren Boebert for Congress.
Nancy Mace came out on top, beating out a few primary challengers.
Hey everyone, this is Congresswoman Nancy Mace from South Carolina's 1st Congressional District. First, I just want to say thank you to all of our veterans out there. I come from a family of military veterans who are active duty and also retired, including my father, who is a retired brigadier general from the U.S. Army, served multiple tours of combat. But we love our veterans, and our veterans also love Donald Trump. And I'm a big supporter of President Trump, and I'm helping him get reelected this week here in South Carolina. And I'm a big fan of Veterans for America First. And I want to thank all of our veterans who are supporting President Trump. I don't know another man who loves our military and our veterans more than Donald Trump. And I also want to thank you all for your endorsement. God bless each and every one of you.
Hello, Greg Hasselbeck with Veterans for America First. I'm with Anna Paulina Luna, who is running for Congress in Florida's 13th District. Anna is an Air Force veteran of 6 years, and not only are we officially endorsing her right now, but she also has received the endorsement of President Donald Trump. So thank you, Anna, for everything you do, and we are officially glad to endorse you today.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to have the endorsement of Veterans for America First. As you know, it's time that we put our Constitution and our constituents first in Washington, D.C. And with your help and your support, not only will I fight for veterans, but I'll also be flipping Florida's 13th congressional district.
I'm here with one of America's favorite congressmen in Florida, who's always been a friend of veterans. And we are announcing today that we are endorsing his re-election campaign.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. And you know what? The veterans of this country are actually willing to stand up for our values and to fight to make sure that we preserve them. And it's an honor to have your endorsement, to have you in my corner.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Thank you. Good to see you again.
My fellow Americans, we have to have hope, and we will always have hope because we live in this country. We live under a Constitution of the United States that's still in place, regardless of the folks that want to shred it and use it against us. We live in this country, and this country is that shining city on the hill, the beacon of liberty. It's the last place, the last best hope of freedom for not just the people that live here, but all countries around the world. And that's why we can have hope, because the United States of America is not going to end as long as there are groups and individuals in those groups like Veterans for Trump and Veterans for America First leading the way. Veterans love that flag. Veterans love what that flag stands for, regardless of the partisan attacks and bickering and all of the political things associated with the way you may see that flag today. We love it. We've bled for it. We've lost friends that have died for it. We've lost fathers and mothers that have died for it. And we will continue to hope that the shining city on the hill, the beacon of liberty, will exist in 10 years, will exist in 100 years, and you can take it to the bank. In 1,000 years, if the earth is still here, the United States of America will be the beacon for liberty, and all who come under its shadow will be protected.
The United States of America, as we know it, is the greatest country the world has ever seen. Donald J. Trump is the greatest president that this country has ever seen. And I believe when he returns to office in 2024 as the 47th president of the United States of America, he's going to restore our economy. He's going to fight for our energy independence. He's going to make energy dominant again. And as a member of, or 20-year veteran of the nuclear power industry, I plan on helping him do that. He's going to restore our borders. He's going to secure our elections. He's going to keep our kids safe. He's going to stop men from dominating women's sports. Every topic that we can think of that's plaguing our society today, Donald J. Trump has released a plan for. And we know that during the 4 years of his initial presidency, he did what he said he was going to do. And I believe firmly, and I think many Americans, most Americans, believe the same. That's what we have to look forward to. Returning this United States of America to the country that it was before the corrupt Biden administration.
America, you are a wonderful, wonderful nation that has been blessed by God. You are a leader in the world, and you have been a leader in the world for a very long time. Why? Because we put our trust in Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God. Why? Because God has blessed us to be leaders in innovation, leaders in war, leaders in peace, and we want to continue that. And as long as we look to God and place our trust in the Lord, He will bless us. Psalm 121 talks about, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills from which cometh my help. My help comes from the Lord who made the heavens and the earth. And the God who made the heavens and the earth is the one who is with America. Yes, it looks like they're taking over. Yes, it looks like they're going to win. But with God on our side, all things are possible. Just keep being a lover of God. Just keep being a lover of humanity and treating each other civilly. And God is going to bless us with people in office like myself and President Donald Trump was going to put you first. And I'm thankful for fighters like Veterans for Trump and Veterans for America First. You guys are amazing. This is an amazing platform. And we're going to work until President Donald Trump gets in office.
So now's the time for all of us to realize how dangerous of a historic period that we are in. And we have we do have an adversary. And that adversary is this globalist movement that everybody sees and everybody's heard about. And the last bastion of freedom, the last redoubt, to use a military term, of our defense, against this global takeover, is the United States of America. And Donald J. Trump, why they're going after him so hard. They're going after Trump so hard because he's the guy that's standing at the breach point of the American line of defense. And he is the guy, he's standing there. And if they're able to take him out, then we're gonna be exposed, and we're gonna be under assault in ways that I'm not certain that most Americans understand. And what President Trump will do is he will thicken that line of defense that we have. And it's not, and I'm talking about it, I'm using military terms, but this is about strengthening the fabric of our country, renewing the idea of what we are as a constitutional republic. Trump is the guy right now that is the biggest threat to these uniparty establishment people in Washington, D.C. He's the biggest threat to these globalists that are principally overseas, that want to turn our country upside down and want to lead us without the beautiful Constitution and without the beautiful Bill of Rights that we have. Trump is it. He is that one guy that's standing in that breach point in our line of defense. And if they take him out, that's why the veterans right now, it's not like we're standing in line. We have got to come together. We have got to shore up, and we've got to stand there shoulder to shoulder with this man and say, look, enough is enough. Our country is worth, like all veterans know, our country is worth dying for. And we gave an oath of office where we solemnly swore to something much greater than who we are. And that oath doesn't leave our fiber, because I just know it doesn't. And so now what we've got to do is we've got to take that oath, renew it in our own minds, and we've got to shore up ourselves, work. We've got to, get shoulder to shoulder with President Trump and help him get over this victory line once again, and take this country back from the grips, the grips of these globalists. And we as veterans need to understand what it is that we can do, because we're good leaders, we're good organizers, we're good in our communities. We have a lot of veterans that participate in various community activities all across the landscape of America. So veterans, I believe, among all other demographics in this country, it will be the veterans that can sway the vote in November of 2024. You have got to decide what you're going to do, and that's going to be the destiny of America, the destiny that you choose to take right now. Okay, no matter what you did in the past, and I love what you did in the past serving our country, but now we have another requirement. We have another ridgeline to get to. We have another service to achieve. And that destiny of America will be what you decide to do right here, right now, as we move forward to November to re-elect Donald J. Trump to be the next president of the United States of America.
Just as I talked somewhat passionately about November is a time to choose, for veterans, it's also a time to serve once again. It is a time where we need to understand that it is veterans that understand the role of mission. It is veterans that understand the need for teamwork. As I look back over my military career, I'd have to say, particularly when I was in command, I had some of the very best Navy Seabees, and I had some that were probably a little troublesome. But one thing that everybody shared was when the mission was on the line, when they knew that as a unit we had to succeed, everybody pulled together. Everybody focused on the mission. Everybody concentrated on teamwork. That's not necessarily a characteristic that exists routinely in society. And that's where we as veterans can make a huge contribution, particularly to this upcoming election in November. We know what the mission is. The mission is to bring back the America that we all saw and we all experienced 4 years ago. And to do so, it takes teamwork. It takes a focus on that mission. And as we say, it's time now for veterans to come to the assistance of America. It's time once again for you to look at your oath of office, an oath that you still must abide by, and realize it is now the time to serve. It is time to bring other veterans with you. When you stand up in your community and you speak out, I guarantee you, right next to you will be a brother or a sister veteran. So there'll be 2 of you. And then pretty soon, 2 will become 10. And 10 will become 100. And 100 will become 1,000. And 1,000 will become 10,000. And those 10,000 votes will swing America back to the land that we all love, will also make America once again great. So again, veterans, get up. It's time to go. You know what the mission is. You know who the team is. Get to work. It's time to save America.
To every voter out there, it isn't too late. And don't let someone tell you that your vote doesn't matter. Because your vote, someone else's vote, someone else's vote, someone else's vote. And when each and every one of you flood the polls in November of next year, your voice will be heard.
Moms, it is so important for you to get out and vote for President Trump because our children and our families, the nuclear family that we know, is being attacked, and he is the only person that is standing in the way, and we need to make sure that we support him. Our children are the future of this nation, and if we do not stand up and get in the way of what is coming, and get in the way of them being used and sacrificed on this altar of gender ideology, Marxist, communist religion, then we need to make sure that we are on the front lines, making sure that we are in the way of this attack so that we can support the man that has our back, and that is President Donald Trump. Our country was much safer under him, and because our country was safer and because we had more money in our pockets, our children were better taken care of. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but the last 3 years, our children have been dragged through the mud, and we need to make sure that we are standing in that gap to make sure that they are safe and protected. And doing that, make sure that liberty lives on for future generations. And that is why moms in this country must come out and go and vote for President Trump.
For my grandkids and yours, I'm voting for Donald Trump. I'm voting for America. It's basic common sense.
We really need to get President Trump elected this year. President Trump did so much good when he served our country so faithfully. I want to make sure he gets back in office, and I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. America needs to be energy independent again. We need someone serious who's going to stop Biden's border disorder. That's been crippling our country, not only in terms of undocumented aliens coming in, but the amount of drugs coming in and killing our citizens has been off the charts. And we got to get rid of Bidenomics. I think Trump had one of the best economies in recent memory. He did a really good job, appointed good jurists to the bench. I'm all in for Donald Trump, and I hope you are too. He's a good man, and I think that we need him back as president of these United States.
It's critically important for veterans to get involved. And to me, we took an oath a long time ago to really protect the Republic. The Republic's in danger, and we need veterans to stand up. And I'm not talking violence, I'm talking getting involved locally. You have the leadership skills, you have the tech skills, you have the discipline, the perseverance that most Americans don't have. And the country's calling you to get involved. And whether that be at your local school board or your church, or there's so many places, so many institutions that have fallen apart and are no longer trusted, and we need to rebuild that from the bottom up, and veterans need to be a huge part of that, and stay true to the oath you gave a long time ago.
President Trump has been fantastic to veterans across the nation, and we owe it to him, and we're showing that through our service back to him in support of his campaign.
Veterans for Trump understand what it's going to take to keep America free.
After I was blown up, as I mentioned before, I was hit by a roadside bomb
that was estimated to be about 700 pounds of explosives on the road. It was buried in the road, shredded my Humvee, killed 3 of my soldiers. Eventually, I was able to get out of the Humvee, and I was trying to direct traffic, being an NCO, unknowingly, unknowing how injured I was. And I remember seeing one of my buddies waving at me, trying to get me to come to him. And got my attention redirected over here because my body armor was on fire and the material was melting and running down my leg. So I had to take my body armor off. And I'm still on the battlefield. I'm standing beside my Humvee. And what I didn't know is that my buddy was trying to get my attention to get me to come away from the Humvee because there were bullets flying all around me. And I didn't know it because I couldn't hear it. After I took my body armor off, he knew that he had to come out there and get me away from that Humvee before a stray bullet caught me or something like that. He ran out there in a hail of bullets, not knowing if there was going to be another explosion because I had actually survived 2 blasts, an IED, and then the AT-4 inside my truck, which is the handheld rocket, cooked off and caused a fireball. He didn't know what else was going to explode, but he ran out there towards the danger. He ran out there towards the danger, put himself at risk for a fellow soldier, a friend, yes. But something that I see is that soldiers are willing to do that, not just for each other, but they're willing to do it for strangers. They're willing to do it for other people. Our country is saturated with men and women willing and have served in the United States military. We have patriots that are willing to stand up and help one another, just like on the battlefield. Well, right now, I feel like America is in a battle for her soul. I feel like there's bullets flying all around us, and all of us feel like we're kind of dodging them and weaving. President Trump is willing to run out there into those bullets. He's been labeled, he's been called names, he's faced with all kinds of political driven criminal things that many of us know are politically driven. He's willing to do that for you. He's willing to do that for me. He is running towards the danger to help save America. There are good people out there. There are men and women that are willing to put themselves at risk to protect our country and to protect our way of life, just like President Donald Trump.
President Trump says he is okay after getting hit by a bullet. It was just...
We also have to remember that former President Trump wasn't the only victim of this attack. We have 1 person dead, 2 critically injured. What more?
He lost his life selflessly acting as a human shield to protect them from flying bullets. He went right over the top of them and was hit. What a fine man he was.
And the visual evidence paints a stark picture of how close President Trump came to losing his life. One video clip shows the exact moment Trump dodges the assassin's bullet, a moment that some are calling divine intervention. Watch this. There you see him. Look at that. Unbelievable. If he had just not moved his head, we would not have President Trump with us today. Another clip reveals just how vulnerable Trump was during those critical moments. This one is even more shocking. Watch.
Take a look what happened.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Was this tragedy preventable, yes or no? Yes.
You have not been able to answer the number of agents, whether or not requests were denied on additional security, whether or not law enforcement were able to engage before the shooting with the assassin, how he got on the roof, how the rifle got on the roof. You can't tell us how many shots he fired, whether the casings were recovered. You can't tell us anything about his cell phone. You can't tell us whether the rally was supposed to be postponed, given the intelligence that you were receiving. You can't tell us whether the car had a bomb. You can't even tell us his motive. And the American people are incredibly distrustful because it has taken 9 days to even get a scintilla of evidence out of you. Maybe if I was CNN or ABC or NBC, I would have gotten much more thorough and accurate information, but we have not received that in a subpoenaed hearing in front of this Congress. That is why the American people are frustrated, and I echo the bipartisan calls on this committee and all across this country that you should resign, or maybe when the president wakes up from his nap, he can fire you.
President Trump is coming for the deep state to hold these bastards accountable. They've already done a lot of damage, and they're dead set on taking down President Trump.
And President Trump, back in Commander-in-Chief, I would go back to re-enlist today.
When President Trump came down that escalator in 2015, he declared war on the establishment. He declared war on the radical left. And those of us who've enlisted to help him, we are veterans fighting this battle to save America.
You do not have to be a military veteran to be involved in this movement.
Join us today at Veterans for Trump.
Fight, fight, fight.
You should go to TrumpForce47.com and register to support President Trump.
This political regime has made us look weak on a national stage, and therefore that puts a target on our back, and none of us are safe.
In the end, they're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I'm just standing in their way.
About a goal of saying everybody should end up in the same place. And since we didn't start in the same place, some folks might need more.
Freedom to be in your bedroom, freedom to be in your exam room, freedom to tell your kids what they can read. That stuff is weird.
We have our veterans sleeping on the streets, and we have illegal immigrants coming into our country living in luxury hotels above where the veterans are. It's so reverse of what it should be.
President Trump understands the grave responsibility that a president and commander-in-chief bears.
Thank God that we have a president who stands with our veterans instead of one who runs away from them.
I've known him for so long. For the past 16 months, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.